Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I want to rank all the ancient Pokemon in the Pokemon TCG right now, or cards I should say, as there are trainers, including the ones that aren't out yet, the ones that are coming out in the next few months, all the ones that we've had revealed, I believe. And so this is, I think, how many? I should probably say, this is going to delete the images. No, it didn't. Nice. Okay. So these are actually, we can probably just show the whole images. No, that's too small. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the ones, I'll show them up on the screen as well, especially the ones obviously that aren't out yet. But I won't show the ones that are, I'm actually going to add another row as well. I'm not going to show the ones that people know pretty well. If you want to know more about them, I've covered them a lot on my channel, so you can check out other videos on those. First off, we have Screamtail. Screamtail is a good tech in Gardevoir. Um, and I mean, it's very good in Gardevoir, especially post rotation. It's going to be super important because you're losing the Chilling Reign Gardevoir, so it's going to be super important for keeping that deck afloat. I don't think the deck's going to be amazing post rotation, but I do think it has potential to still be pretty good because Gardevoir EX is super good and Kirlia is super good. So I think we do have that right there. Also, sorry for the volume. The volume's being weird on my computer right now, but hopefully it's okay. So Screamtail, I think, is going to end up in B tier. I could put in A. It's pretty good, but also it's like its own. It's not really its own thing. It doesn't synergize with the ancient Pokemon, and it also doesn't work with its own deck. It's part of another deck. It's a one of, two of, potentially even a three of, or maybe even a four of. I would not probably play four, but certainly up to three. Normally it's a one of though, so it's good. It's pretty powerful, but just attacking Gardevoir. Next up we have Slitherwing. Slitherwing will actually pull up. It's okay. It hits decent damage. It's 120. I thought it did 140. Not gonna lie, it has 140 HP. 120. It's playable, but it's not particularly good. I'll dump it in C tier. I could put it lower because it's bad, but also it does have some loose synergy with the ancient Pokemon right now. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I'm giving the cards higher values if they're more synergistic with the other cards, and I'm also giving them higher value if they're like more synergistic with ancient Pokemon, and if they can stand alone, but they're not synergistic, that's better than being part of a deck that's not an ancient deck really at all. But of course, Screamtail is much better than Slitherwing. Slitherwing works with ancient Pokemon kind, and Screamtail does not at all. Sandy Shock's EX is kind of interesting, has a really interesting ability, and notably in the future is going to be better as well. I'm judging these now, if they're out now, but also based on the future cards. Or, okay, the cards that are coming out in the future, not future cards by that sense as supposed to opposite of ancient cards. I think you know what I mean. So anyway, it has its ability that lets you accelerate a basic fighting energy from the discard to it. Um, if your opponent's taking at least two prizes, more or less, that's what it says. That's pretty good, but also its attack's like awful. It's not unusable, but it's pretty bad. It's usable with the ability, but it's not that good. That being said, it's pretty nice with the ancient package. With what's this card called? I have forgotten the name. It is I don't know. It's the one that's Raikou. It's yeah, I honestly completely forget the name of it. But this one, the tall Raikou one, it's really good with that. So it's a decent card. I'm gonna put it in A because it's high synergy with other cards. It's pretty nice in the ancient pack. No, I'll leave it an A. It is nice with Hisuian Arcanine V as well. It's not necessarily super powerful in terms of Pokemon. I'd say it's weaker than Screamtail, but Screamtail is said as like attack and a non-ancient deck. So I'll put Sandy Shocks above it. I could definitely see it being put in B tier. I might actually end up moving it down as we go on. No, actually, I'm going to move it down right now, I think. Next up, we got ourselves the Among Us guy, which is Brute Bonnet. And Brute Bonnet's pretty decent. It needs this tool on it, and the tool is obviously it's good. But on top of that, it allows you to poison. It has some mediocre to usable attack, but it's not great. I'd say, well, okay, it's not great as an attacker, but it's okay. It's super underused. It's actually a very important attacker in Roaring Moon. There is more Pico, which is nice, but Brute Bonnet can actually really be very good as an attacker in that deck. I'd probably put it in B as well. I mean, it's pretty good. Is it's free damage? It can be a little clunky. It can see play in a lot of different decks as well. Actually, no, I'll put it in A. I think it's pretty good. It's awkward as I said. It needs a bunch of pieces, but it's a pretty good card. And then we have Roaring Moon itself with its big one-shotting attack. It's big, or it's like decently big, just regular damage attack, and has a little bit of versatility. It's a pretty cool card. I guess it'll also be an A tier. I don't know if I can put an S tier, but I'll put an A tier. It's not super synergistic with the ancient stuff, but overall, it's a pretty good card. These tiers aren't necessarily ordered either. I'd say they're loosely ordered, but don't get too caught up in that. Now we have the trainers. I'm actually going to talk about. I don't really know where to put Earthen Vessel. Earthen Vessel is really good. Like it's definitely the best card in this list, I think. I guess I should just put it in S. It's really good. It doesn't necessarily have a ton of synergy with Ancient. It actually has no direct synergy, I guess. But like, it's a very good card. It's pretty good in a lot of decks, including Roaring Moon and like a lot of decks. It's really good in a wide variety of decks. So I feel like I need to put an S tier because it's so good in ancient decks and non-ancient decks. More importantly, because right now ancient decks aren't super good, but in the next set they're gonna get a little better. Future is definitely better than ancient, which is fine. I mean, I think the future cards are cooler as well. But oh, and that video will be coming tomorrow as well. So subscribe for that, or maybe not tomorrow. It'll be coming soon though. So ancient booster energy capsule, 6 more HP, stopping special conditions. It's pretty good. I'm also gonna put an S and honestly, I'm going to put Professor Sada's Vitality in S as well. Actually, no, I'm going to drop Ancient Booster Energy Capsule down to A. It is pretty good. 60 more HP is obviously really nice, but it's not like broken. It just doesn't have great partners. You're generally looking to get big Pokemon even bigger, and your biggest Pokemon, you have some that are like 230, maybe 240, which is decently big. Pushing up to like 290, 300 is pretty nice, but it's not like they're not one-shottable. They're certainly very two-shottable by pretty much every deck in the game. Not every deck, but most decks, especially when they're working at their full capacity. So I feel like it's good. It's really good. And then the special condition stopping is pretty nice as well. Obviously, it works with essentially any ancient deck, but I'm gonna leave it in just A tier there. And then Professor Sada's Vitality, super good. It's kind of like Welder. It's not Welder, but it's still pretty good. It has the effect to draw cards. It has the energy acceleration. It's to two different targets, which is an ideal, kind of forcing you into a more boxy style deck, or not necessarily boxy, but like you need more Pokemon. But you know, it's good in Roaring Moon. It's good with Sandy Shocks. It's good with pretty much any ancient Pokemon outside of Screamtail, which doesn't need it because it needs Gardevoir or some way to put the damage on, which is probably Gardevoir. There are other ways, but you know, do Gardevoir. Um, and then I don't know. I feel like it's just the fundamental ancient card in my opinion as well. I don't know if people necessarily agree with that. I could see an argument for a lot of different ancient cards, but I think that one, in my opinion, is the most vital one, if I could say. Next up, we got this new supporter. I honestly forget the name of the supporter, so let's find it. Oh, it's up here. It is Explorer's Guidance, translated here on PokeBeach. I'm looking at PokeBeach. Oh, by the way, the websites I'm looking at for this video are going to be Limitless, Justin Basil, and PokeBeach. Justin Basil for just a few of them. I'm sure they're on PokeBeach. But yeah, this is a good. All of them are pretty good sites. PokeBeach does have wonky ads sometimes. But anyways, Explorer's Guidance here. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck and put 2 of them into your hand. Discard the others. It's a decent supporter, but honestly, it has like no synergy with Ancient. I mean, not none, but it has very little. It potentially had like there's some sort of like discard synergy, which is kind of what Earthen Vessel has, but like I don't think it's gonna be good in ancient decks. I'm gonna put in B. I think it's a decent card. It's potentially better than Colossus Experiment. It's different, but potentially better. But at the same time, it's like I don't know. It's not super powerful. I think it should see some play, and I do believe it will see some, but I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan. It doesn't. It digs some, but it doesn't dig like a ton, and it doesn't get a ton of cards, and it also discards a bunch of cards in not really a fun way. It's an okay discarding card as well. It's kind of like you look at Clay, and Clay was an interesting card, but it's not really like Clay either. So yeah, I think B tier here is fine. Next up, we got the new cards. And I'm gonna start with the single prizes. First, I'm gonna start with Screamtail. Um, Here, let me organize these correctly in a way that I think is best. There we go. So we got Screamtail. Screamtail is bad. I think Screamtail is pretty useless. Same thing with Sandy Shocks and Great Tusk. Of these 3, Screamtail is the worst, which will be an F. It doesn't really matter what it does. It's just essentially it's not completely useless, but it's pretty bad at least in the standard, which is where I'm judging these Pokemon. Um, and none of them particularly stand out in drastically in other forms. Great Tusk and Sandy Shocks and potentially GLC, but fighting is really bad. That's why they'd be playable. Sandy Shocks is okay as a quote unquote one energy attacker that hits for 90 for one, which is good, but it's not actually a one energy attacker. It's actually like a four energy. You need four in play. It doesn't hit weakness either, which is a pretty big downside. And then Great Tusk does a bunch of damage if you have bench damage, but they're both pretty awkward to pull off. Not a ton of high value from them. So I'm just going to leave them in the D tier. They're not like completely awful. I do believe they are both worse than Slitherwing. Potentially Sandy Shocks could be up there as well. I might have an extra tier. Maybe I shouldn't have all these tiers. I think this is fine. I don't have a problem with it like this. Next up, we get into the one I just really can't remember these names. Fluttering, though, with Fluttering Dusk, if it's in the active, your opponent's active has no abilities except for Fluttering Dusk, and then it has Flying Curse 90 for 3, put 2 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. Honestly, to me, this is an easy A tier. It's super powerful when it works. It's super disruptive to Lost Zone, which is, in my opinion, going to be the best deck in format next set. I always say that, and I always stand by it. I mean, I do think it is the best deck in the game right now. Arguably, it is like not one deck. So by that mirror, maybe it isn't, but like it's so good. Lost Zone is always so good, and being able to counter that is also, again, always so good. This can easily slot into any ancient deck as it is 3 colorless. You do have Energy Acceleration as well. Obviously, if it was cheaper, it'd be better, but its attack is very usable. It's a really good card. It can slot into any ancient deck as well pretty easily because Sada, like you get pretty good value out of Sada because Sada you sometimes don't get enough value because you don't have enough ancient Pokemon in play, but now you should always get get like that double value with those two Pokemon, which is going to be super nice, super important. So I think Flutter Mane is really good. I mean, I don't think it's like broken or anything, but it's definitely a Pokemon that I think you will be wanting to put in your ancient decks. It doesn't have a ton of ancient synergy directly, but it's good and it slots in pretty easily as a nice tech, and it's good against. I mostly said Lost on, but it can be good against a wide variety of decks. Notably, you're looking at. I honestly can't think of them off the top of my head. I like Chien-Pao. It's a pain for Chien-Pao. There are a lot of Pokemon without abilities, obviously, and it's good against a lot of them. Next up, we have Koraidon EX. Or actually, no, let's talk about Great Tusk. I probably should have talked about this earlier. Great Tusk EX, let's see. I think it's here. It is coming out in our next set. So the other ones that aren't out yet are coming out in Temporal Forces. And this one is coming out in Paldean Fates, which, in my opinion, awful name. I guess it's better than Shiny Fates, but I don't know. Anyways, Great Tusk EX, and I believe this is the only other ancient Pokemon that we have seen revealed that isn't coming in Temporal Forces. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, though. But its ability Quaking Destruction, if it's into active at the end of your turn, discard the top 5 cards of your deck. And Great Bash 260, it's not affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. This card's like a really pure hot trash because I mean, it's really bad, right? It's just really bad. Its attack is really expensive. You could power it up, but it's not really. Its 4 energy 260 is not good. The ability is obviously bad. I mean, it's directly bad. Discarding random cards off the top of your deck is not really ever good. There are rare circumstances in which it is, but it's not like you can use it extra either. So it has some loose utility, but really it's just bad. So it does an actively bad ability, a pretty bad attack. It's not actively bad. I mean, it does damage, but its HP is 250, which is good. Pushing up to 210 is really nice, but like if you're not attacking with it, then obviously it's not good. And this card isn't good. It isn't EX. It's playable. Pretty much all EXs are playable, so I will dump it in. I could dump it in D. Yeah, I think I'll dump it in D. That's probably fine next to the other Great Tusk and Sandy Shocks. Um, yeah, I could actually bump up Sandy Shocks. I'm gonna bump up Sandy Shocks. I think it is a playable card. It's not super great, but what like a one energy mid to late game attacker, probably very much mid game attacker to swing the prize trade into your favor. Potentially could be very good. Not hitting weakness is bad, but I think it could be nice against certain single prize decks, like against a Comfy or I mean, you don't KO Sableye. It's only good against Comfy. It's pretty bad actually. But I don't know. I'll put it in D actually. Next up, we have Koraidon EX. This is a dragon type. Pretty cool card here. Um, where is it? I've lost it. There we go. 280 for 362 itself, and Vengeful Hammer, 20 for each damage, 10 plus, sorry, 20 plus 10 for each damage count on this Pokemon. 230 HP. Its second attack is fire, fighting, which is pretty awkward. Not unpayable by any means, but it's not great. I think this card's going to land solidly in C tier. It's decent in Draco, so it's kind of like the Screamtail in that sense, but obviously at the same time, it's well, it's just not that like it's not that good. So, and Draco is not that good compared to Gardevoir, and I mean, it's not that good. 280 is a very good number to hit, doing 60 yourself, dropping you to, well, if you have Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, it kind of counteracts that. You're still at 230. It's supposed to be at 290, which is nice. Kind of like that Roaring Moon thing where Ancient Booster Energy Capsule counteracts at 200 you do to yourself, but obviously not as much. But then we also see that if you just do that attack straight out, you're at 170. 170 is pretty low. It's not like unbearably low for a two prizer, but like it's still within that two prize realm, but it's in the very low end. I mean, you're looking at stuff like Squawkabilly, Luminion, and obviously we've seen older Pokemon like Crobat and LDS in that lower HP two prize range. It's sort of pushing yourself into that support range in terms of HP, then dropping down to 110 if you attack twice in a row is just awful. As you're very clearly in single prize HP territory. I don't think you're going to be living a hit though, but honestly, you can't really attack twice with it. You can, of course, then go in with Vengeful. Where is it? Vengeful Hammer, which is okay, but it's not like that good. And you're gonna have 3 energy on. You might just sacrifice yourself. It's kind of like Roaring Moon, but it's worse. Its energy typing is like really awkward. It's not unpayable, as I said, but you could like Sada and Tash and Energy Switch, which is okay, and you can do that with Roaring Moon, but also Roaring Moon's much easier to pay than this. I think there's very little reason to use this over Roaring Moon, other than, as I said earlier, in Draco, it's potentially better than Giratina V Star's attack. But also, it's arguably not because you damage yourself, which isn't great. But it's not an awful card. I'm talking about why it's so bad, but it's okay. It's usable and it's playable, but it's on the lower end. Then we have Walking Awake. Walking Awake is kind of weird. It has this ability that kind of you hit through effects of attacks, or no, your attack hits through effects. You can hit 120, you can hit 240 if you're affected by if your opponent's active is affected by a special condition. Presumably that'll be poison with a Brute Bonnet, so it could be okay. I mean, I'd say you're probably B. No, I think this is a C tier Pokemon. I could see B or C. It's not super strong. 20 HP is not a ton. I want to treat, but then you do have obviously a decently strong attack. It is 3 energy though. It is again very payable. It's watercolorless colors, which is pretty payable. One of the most payable 3 energy attacks in the game, but at the same time, it is 3 energy, which means you need some other piece way to get it up. It could be sad, as I said earlier. It could be as sad as a box, but its weakness isn't that good to be hitting. Does it even hit weakness? I think it does, but yeah, it does, but it's not that good. Again, it's okay. It's very much in that Koraidon, like decent, very arguably on the verge of playable seriously, like competitively. I don't know about competitively, but like seriously playable, but like probably isn't super playable. I'd say this is probably actually worse than Koraidon in its like direct manner because you don't have that well, you don't have another Pokemon that's like copying it, but also like you do have you don't like damage yourself and it's okay. It's much easier to pay, so I think it is might potentially see some play. I don't expect it to see that much, but I think Slitherwing, Karada, and Walking Wake are all in a pretty similar tier of C, which is pretty mediocre, not great, not really that playable. And then as I said earlier, it is playable in the box of an ancient box. And then we have Gouging Fire. It does 260 for 3, and then it can't use it again until it leaves the active. For Fire, Fire Colorless has 230 HP. 230 again, pushing up to that 290, 260 for 3 is pretty good. But like also it's fire, which in my opinion fire isn't that good. I'm gonna put it in B. I think this is fair. I think it's a decent basic. I think it is worse than Roaring Moon. When you look at these big basics, you are comparing them to Roaring Moon. Not really Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks is very different as it's like a set up utility Pokemon and it's kind of self-sufficient, kind of like Glaring Moltres V. It's worse than Glaring Moltres V, but it's pretty comparable. Gouging Fire is comparable to Roaring Moon, and it is much worse than Roaring Moon in my opinion. You don't have that one-shot potential. 260 is just not an amazing number to be hitting. It's not an awful number to be hitting. After all, you are like KOing stuff. You're carrying two prizes, and you're potentially pushing it towards those, or you're KOing like basic two prizes, stage one two prizes, and potentially stage two prizes, but probably not. But then with a bit of damage buff from somewhere, you can be KOing those like stage two prizers, or certainly like V stars you can KO, but I don't. It's okay. I mean, fire is a pretty good type. Or it's not pretty good, but you do have Moltres. So being a basic fire attacker is pretty good. Um, I mean, water and lightning also have that with Articuno and Zapdos, so I don't think it's like an insane benefit. But you have Magma Base and you have Sada's Vitality. It's very payable. It's very comparable to Roaring Moon, though. You're kind of probably playing pretty Charo-y, and it's also comparable to Entei, and I think it's worse than both of those. It's not as comparable to Entei, though. Entei is lower upside, but lower downside as well. Anyways, lastly, we have Walking. No, what is this one? I've forgotten the name. Raging Bolt. There we go. I honestly would never remember that. And that is, to me, is the A tier. When you look at it, its bursting roar attack is super mid, but then extreme ascent is pretty decent for lightning fighting. Discard any amount of basic energy attached to your Pokemon and play it to 70 for each card discard in this way. This is very similar to Chien-Pao. There are, of course, some major differences though. So it is lightning fighting. Lightning fighting has some awful energy acceleration options. I mean, I don't know how good other types have, but it's worse than water. That being said, you have a higher multiplier. You have more HP. 240 HP is pretty nice. And then with the tool, you're up to 300, which is awkward to KO. Nothing like insane. I was just saying how Great Tusk isn't good enough for being 310, which is really nice, but you could use Ancient Booster into Capsule. And then with this also, you have Sandy Shocks and Professor Status Vitality to give you that energy to get into play. Obviously, we'll kind of need to be doing that, but with 4 energy, you're one-shotting those two prize V star, V stars and two prize stage ones, and then you could push towards that like stage 2 EX slash VMAX range, although I think VMAX are going to be pretty bad post rotation. I honestly don't know what the options are. Like I kind of do, but none of them seem that good off the top of my head. I do think Raging Bolt though is pretty good. I'll probably talk more about it in the future, but overall, this is my list and ranking of the ancient Pokemon. I think they are pretty cool. Not as cool as the future Pokemon. I think the future ones are really cool, and the ancient ones are fun. There are more like big basic style attackers. Both the ancient and future are big basic style attackers. Essentially, every Pokemon from both of them is a big basic, but the ancients lean more into that with higher HP, higher damage, and also like bigger attack cost, which is not a good thing. Bigger attack cost is bad, but I think they're pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how they play. I do think, as I said, Raging Bolt's going to be good. Flutter is going to be good. Gouging Fire and Walking Awake are playable, as well as the new Koraidon. Anything worse than that seems bad. I think the Great Tusk EX does not have much hope in the future, but potentially it could be used somewhere. I wouldn't be completely shocked if it popped up somewhere, but its damned output's pretty mediocre. Its HP is good. It's very good, but its ability is literal. It's like so bad. It's actively a bad ability. It hurts you. So I don't know. Overall, I think the ancient Pokemon are pretty cool, though. Obviously, the trainers are really good as well. The trainers of the future ones are good as well, but the ancient ones are probably better. The new support doesn't really synergize that well, but it's decent. But overall, I'm interested in hearing your rankings down below. And if you think if I missed anything, please tell me that. And if I did, that will be probably in a pinned comment. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video. Also, subscribe if you enjoyed it, like the video, comment, all that good stuff.